Hello, and welcome to the Project Planning 101 training presentation. Before we begin, we want to take a minute to first thank everyone who has joined today's webinar. We understand that the timing of this webinar is unlike prior years. Social unrest, rooted in historical racial injustices, and heightened by the recent killings of Black and brown people in our country, all set in the backdrop of a global pandemic and national and local political tensions, has rightfully caused individuals to question those in the position of authority. That said, city planning has approached today's webinar from a perspective of equitable and transparent access to information. With respect to project planning, we understand that it can be very challenging and time-consuming to learn about the process, let alone participate in it. Access to information is key, and in this presentation, you will be able to see the ways that planning has made improvements to the accessibility of project information, making it more convenient than ever to learn about the projects in our communities. Today's training is intended to introduce residents, newly elected neighborhood council board members, and members of community-based organizations to city planning's development review process, and to provide each of you with the tools and resources to stay informed, not to mention to provide input during the development process here in Los Angeles. With that introduction, let's get started. Before we begin the presentation, let's take a moment to go over the agenda. We will devote some time at the outset to our city's demographics, in order to provide some important context about Los Angeles. Shortly thereafter, we'll shift into defining city planning's role on issues related to land use, followed by a deeper dive into the project workflow. Prior to opening up the discussion to Q&A, we will spend some time introducing you to the online resources we've developed, which are intended to give you the ability to engage more frequently on local planning issues in your neighborhood with the relative ease and from the comfort of your home. Our goal is to keep the presentation under an hour, so we can devote at least 30 minutes to Q&A. As a participant, you may submit your questions at any point during the webinar by typing them in the questions field of the webinar's control panel. If you do not see the control panel, it may be collapsed and you will need to expand the window. We will do our best to get through as many questions as possible, but if we're unable to get to your question today, please email us at planning.liaison@lacity.org. We'll be sure to follow up, even schedule time to discuss any additional comments or questions you may have. Now let's get started. As far as cities go, Los Angeles is the second largest city in the United States, with about 4 million people who collectively speak over 200 languages. The city stretches across 469 square miles, encompassing mountains, beaches, and a river, as well as dense urban, suburban, and semi-rural neighborhoods. Taking a closer look at our city's demographics, you will notice that our median age in LA is 35. We have roughly an equal number of self-identifying males and females, and a healthy age distribution, with the largest group in the 30 to 39 age range. These statistics highlight the youth and dynamism of LA's population, which city planning is careful to reflect in its policy and community plan updates. Nearly 50% of Angelenos are Latino, about 28% are white, 12% are Asian, and about 8% are Black. We are responsible for planning in ways that respect the city's demographic and geographic diversity. So what exactly is the role of city planning, and why is it important to our communities? According to the American Planning Association, planning means housing choice, safer communities, better commutes, and neighborhoods of lasting value. Another way to understand planning is by considering its role in arranging buildings, roads, and other structures so society can function effectively. At times, planning can be focused on preservation. In other instances, it can serve as a tool for promoting equity and access in terms of opportunities for new, neighborhood-serving amenities and housing, which are made available through policy and zoning updates. Either way, planning is about working with local communities and other agencies and departments to build consensus and draft land use policies. In this regard, planning can be thought of as the means by which the city balances its long-term needs, whether they are related to mobility, jobs, infrastructure, housing, open space, or design. For example, the city's housing element is a joint venture between the city planning and the Housing and Community Investment Department. Together, both departments work on identifying LA's housing needs and establishing clear goals and objectives to inform future housing policy decisions. These goals and objectives help inform city zoning regulations and guide future development considerations, demonstrating how planning also entails the review and analysis of development projects to ensure that proposals are consistent with the city regulations and policies. A topic of discussion we will dive into greater detail in the following slides. While each planning department may be structured somewhat differently, here at Los Angeles City Planning, we are led by our Director of Planning, Vince Bertoni, who has 4 deputy directors directly overseeing 4 separate bureaus, along with an executive officer who manages the affairs of the department across its bureaus and provides support on a number of strategic initiatives. The members of the executive team work in unison to advance the shared goals and objectives of city planning and its staff. The Citywide Policy Planning Bureau manages the long-range planning efforts, setting policy goals and objectives that inform the work at the neighborhood level. The Community Plan Bureau oversees the policy updates to the city's community plans, which help inform local zoning decisions and the types of uses that are permitted on each parcel of land. The Project Planning Bureau is responsible for managing the development review functions for city planning. This includes processing land use applications, administering plans, and implementing zoning regulations, as well as the review of these projects. And the Operations and Engagement Bureau provides the technical, administrative, and financial services that are critical to the overall success of the entire department. These 4 bureaus represent the 400+ individuals who work for city planning. Much of the information we will review today will focus on the operations of the Project Planning Bureau, which is overseen by Deputy Director Lisa Weber. Taking a closer look at the Project Planning Bureau, you can see here that it is comprised of 7 divisions. You have the 3 geo teams, which focus on different geographic areas of the city. Each geo team consists of staff who are familiar with the development cases specific to their assigned geography. At City Planning, we have Valley, Central East, and West-South geo teams, the latter also representing the harbor area. These planners are responsible for reviewing and processing the bulk of the project's cases that are filed with our department. We also have our Citywide Projects Division, which reviews and processes projects that involve the preparation of environmental impact reports, or EIRs, and that result in new jobs, housing units, and neighborhood-serving amenities. The Office of Zoning Administration investigates and reviews quasi-judicial applications filed across the city. The Development Services Center and the department's specialized services are also a part of the Project Planning Bureau. Having a better understanding of how we operate, we'll shift now to the project review workflow. All development project applications begin at one of our Development Services Centers, also known as the DSCs, or the public counter. Whether an application is for a building renovation or new construction, the public counter is the place where planning and development come together. Before filing, applicants can also visit the public counter to find answers to basic zoning questions or learn about the planning approvals they will need to get before moving forward with requesting a building permit with the Department of Building and Safety. At City Planning, we see all kinds of project proposals, from requests to build a small house or an over-in-height fence on a residential property, to requests to serve beer and wine at a neighborhood restaurant, or to build a new apartment complex, a shopping center, or a tall building with both residential and commercial uses. We even occasionally review requests to build stadiums, museums, or a medical campus. And just as the range of projects can vary, so do the applicants, who might be home or business owners, nonprofits, or market rate developers. All of these applicants are constituents who we assist through the land use process. The distinction between a by right and a discretionary project is important to grasp. To help explain, we put together this graphic to walk you through the different processes for the 2 types of projects and the major step they involve. By right projects, also known as ministerial projects, are development proposals that meet the standards and zoning regulations outlined in the zoning code and do not require additional or formal planning approvals, also known as planning entitlements. These projects may proceed directly to the Department of Building and Safety to request a building permit. For example, say an applicant is submitting an application to construct a new single-family dwelling on a residential zoned lot. The project plans show the project is within compliance for the height, floor area, setbacks, and parking allowed per the current zoning regulations. This project is then deemed to be a by right project and may move forward with requesting a building permit from the Department of Building and Safety. A by right project can also be an application to construct a new apartment building that will contain 15 units. If the building complies with the height, setback, and parking requirements prescribed by the city's zoning regulations, and no formal planning approvals are required, it could also move forward with requesting a building permit from Building and Safety. In both of these examples, city planning may need to review or sign off on certain building permit clearances, but no formal entitlement applications would need to be filed with city planning. On occasion, these projects may require some form of administrative approval from city planning to demonstrate and verify compliance with certain regulations or guidelines. However, administrative approvals are still ministerial and can be obtained at the DSC before the applicant receives a building permit or permits. In contrast, a development proposal becomes a discretionary project when an entitlement application is filed to either request some form of relief or to seek approval from city planning for the construction, modification, or use of a building. When an entitlement application is filed, city planning must use its discretion to assess whether the project is in conformance with other citywide policies and objectives, and ultimately whether it is appropriate for the proposed site. For example, an applicant might file a discretionary application to seek a conditional use approval from city planning to sell alcohol in an existing restaurant or a zone variance to allow the restaurant to provide less parking than is required by the zoning code. In another example, an applicant may file a discretionary application for a site plan review because the project will involve the construction of 50 or more new residential units or 50,000 or more square feet of commercial space. With a site plan review, a project is not seeking any deviations. Rather, the zoning code requires that city planning conduct the site plan review to promote orderly development, evaluate and mitigate any potentially significant environmental impacts, and ensure that the project is proper in relation to the site and surrounding area. Discretionary projects entail a more robust review process, often including a public hearing to obtain community input before city planning issues a determination letter. Ultimately, if a project is approved and complies with all conditions, the applicant will return to Building and Safety to request a building permit. If a project is denied, the proposed project is not eligible for a building permit or it may need to be significantly modified. In Los Angeles, there are 5 development services centers, although only 3 of these locations currently offer planning services. That said, at any of these 3 locations, you can request the following. As we mentioned a moment ago, prior to applying for any land use permits or entitlements, applicants are encouraged to consult with planning staff at the public counter to verify zoning regulations and necessary planning approvals. This is what we mean by zoning information. Planners at the DSC also review and issue sign-offs for building permit clearances. Before a building permit is approved and construction may begin, Building and Safety may require that a planner at the DSC review building plans to ensure that a project is in compliance with the conditions of a discretionary approval before signing off on a portion of the building permit. The DSC is also where case filings occur. These are project applications for entitlements and administrative approvals filed at the public counter. Members of city planning staff are available by appointment to assist applicants with the submission of their applications. Our department also offers case condition clearances. Once administrative approvals or entitlements have been granted, planners sign off on project conditions of approval at the public counter. This is typically done by appointment. Appeals of discretionary determinations to contest the outcome of a project's review may also be filed at the counter. Lastly, the DSCs are where administrative coastal exemptions are processed for projects that have minimal or no impact to coastal resources. Unlike the Valley and West LA DSCs, the Metro or downtown location offers consultation and specialized services that extend beyond the traditional public counter operations. These services are largely tailored to the needs of specific industries and intended to provide additional resources. The Home Sharing Unit takes in, reviews, and approves applications relating to the short-term rental of a primary residence. The Redevelopment Plan Unit manages the implementation of redevelopment plans, each with a unique set of land use restrictions that outline a community vision and revitalization opportunities within specific neighborhoods across Los Angeles. The Map Processing Unit facilitates private street dedications and lot line adjustments, offering general consultation and case filing instructions for applicants seeking guidance on project applications not subject to the State Subdivision Map Act's standard guidelines for review. The Wireless and Telecommunications Unit reviews zoning regulations and condition clearances for the placement of wireless telecommunications facilities on public and private property. The Beverage and Entertainment Streamlining Unit, also known as BEST, handles the initial case intake services and project sign-off for standalone alcohol sales and entertainment entitlement requests. The Monitoring, Verification, and Inspection Program, more commonly referred to as MVIP, verifies conditions of compliance for standalone alcohol and entertainment entitlements, coordinating with the Department of Building and Safety to monitor operations and enforce regulations citywide. Finally, the Metro DSC is also home to records management, which maintains project records for the department. This is where you can review case files in hard copy or on microfilm or microfiche, view Sanborn maps, access California Environmental Quality Act documents, and obtain copies of records. COVID-19 has altered our day-to-day lives and cast a spotlight on the importance of maintaining a sense of community as Angelenos. At the citywide level, we've taken measures to protect everyone's health and safety, from the residents and business owners who frequent the public counter to our dedicated staff. While some of the measures named on this slide are intended to be temporary, they demonstrate how city planning has been able to put the health and safety of Angelenos first, while continuing to provide important services. We've implemented a physical drop-off system to facilitate the exchange of documents and plans, as well as the filing of project applications without requiring face-to-face meetings in order to practice social distancing. We've made it easy to pay all application fees and file product appeals online, services that we intend to keep even after this pandemic, because submitting documents online from one's home or office is such a convenient option. The department is also working towards allowing discretionary applications to be submitted completely online, and has piloted online submissions for a number of application types. Finally, since the declaration of this pandemic, city planning has worked to increase transparency and public access to application material that has been submitted to city planning. All new discretionary application packets that are submitted to city planning have now been made accessible to the public through the department's Planning Document Information System, also referred to as PDIS. Instead of having to schedule an in-person visit to view a case file, Angelenos may now view a project's application and proposed plans online at any time. For more information, visit our website at planning4la.org. That's planning4la.org. We will continue to post the latest information on any additions or changes to our planning services based on the state and local guidance we receive as it relates to COVID-19. So how does the city determine what types of projects can be built and what types of approvals are necessary? Through zoning. Zoning in Los Angeles is informed by the goals and policies of the city's general plan, which is a comprehensive policy document that informs future land use decisions. Specifically, it is a land use element of the general plan that establishes, as the name implies, land use designations and policies that identify a range of zoning options that can be applied to property. These policies assist decision makers as they review planning requests for a new project, or even when a new proposed ordinance or policy is being advanced through the legislative process. Through the use of zoning, cities are able to translate broad land use goals and policies into property-specific development standards, which then determine the allowed uses, meaning where residential, commercial, or industrial uses are appropriate, in addition to regulating the size and scale of development projects, essentially the mass and height, as well as the number of units allowed on site. In the previous slide, we used terms such as use, mass, and height. We will quickly review these important planning concepts which impact what projects can look like and are elements of any project review process over which planning has jurisdiction. When an applicant comes to the public counter for technical guidance, the items on this slide represent just a few of the key zoning components we review to ensure the project is in conformance with the city's rules and regulations, or zoning in short. Use determines the kinds of activities allowed, ranging from residential to commercial and in some instances a mix of both. Height can establish limitations on the maximum building height permitted on a given site. Floor area ratio, or FAR, regulates the mass and bulk of a building. Another way to wrap your head around FAR is to think of it as the ratio of the gross floor area of a building to the area of the lot where it is located. This slide provides a helpful example. You can have 1:1 FAR, depicted by the illustration on the left, a 2:1 FAR, the middle illustration, or a 4:1 FAR, the illustration on the right. Setbacks stipulate the area on a lot that is not intended for buildings and structures, such as front yard setbacks, side yard setbacks, and rear yard setbacks. Density specifies the number of housing units permitted per acre of land where residential uses are allowed. Parking designates the minimum parking requirement based on the allowable use of a building, ranging from a single-family home to an office park with numerous tenants. These are all project considerations that are factored in and discussed during the case intake process.
Pre-filing and case intake. Prior to filing a case, an applicant may consult with the planner at one of our Development Services Center to learn about the approvals they may need before they can pull a building permit. Pre-filing is what we call the period of time which an applicant initiates contact and asks questions and prepares to submit an application. During this time, the applicant will also consult with the other departments, like transportation, engineering, and fire, which are also located in the DSC. The case intake process traditionally begins with an applicant making an appointment at the public counter to submit an application. While requirements can vary, applications for a discretionary project normally consist of the following materials: a city planning application, which includes the project's location, its description, and the requested entitlements. Project plans, which can include a site plan, floor plan, building elevations, or other renderings of the proposed project. Supplemental materials such as referral forms from the applicable geographic division or entitlement-specific material that provides additional background information for certain application types, and mailing labels with the addresses of residents and property owners who live within a certain radius of the proposed project. These labels are used for mailing a project's hearing notice to the surrounding community if a public hearing is required. Once a project has been filed with the city, application materials are made available on the department's Planning Document Information System, also known as PDIS. Making these documents publicly accessible online is a fairly recent improvement to our services, and it is intended to ensure transparency and easier access for the public. It also reduces the need for the public having to make an appointment to view a file in person. Case file numbers. From PDIS to ZIMAS, which we will go over later on, case file numbers are an incredibly helpful way to track, monitor, and pull relevant information on the planning project that's been proposed in the city. When filed, every case receives a unique identifier that provides useful information about the project. The sequencing tells us who the decision maker is, which is spelled out in our zoning code, the year the case was filed, the number of applications, or sequential number, and the types of entitlements or approvals the applicant is seeking. Decision maker. The city zoning code determines which decision maker is responsible for considering each type of planning application that is filed with the department. The slide lists out each decision maker and identifies the acronym that is used to identify each on a case number. ATT and VTT. The advisory agency or appointed deputy advisory agency considers requests involving the subdivision of land. This can include requests to build condominiums or to subdivide land for single-family or small lot homes. They can also include the approval of private streets. APC. The Area Planning Commission considers cases ranging from recommendations on smaller scale legislative requests like zone changes or the appeal of other decisions made by the zoning administrator or advisory agency. In Los Angeles, we have 7 area planning commissions: North Valley, South Valley, West Los Angeles, Central Los Angeles, East Los Angeles, South Los Angeles, and Harbor, which considered cases within their assigned geographic area. Members of these commissions are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. CHC, the Cultural Heritage Commission, and also composed of city residents who are appointed by the mayor. Members of the CHC consider nominations for historical cultural monument designation and projects related to the local landmarks and historically designated neighborhoods. CPC. We have a city planning commission which considers more complex development projects that are proposed citywide, as well as makes recommendations on larger scale legislative approvals like zone changes and general plan amendments that require city council approval. DIR. The Director of Planning or their designee considers land use applications such as density bonus, specific plan project permit compliance, site plan review, and the transit-oriented community project requests. ZA, the Office of Zoning Administration, decides on certain planning entitlements. They're typically regarded as being a quasi-judicial decision makers because they investigate, conduct hearings, and issue determinations. These types of cases can include the consideration of conditional use for alcohol, as well as zone variances, such as a project requesting a reduction in parking spaces below the number required by the code. Finally, the City Council is a decision-making body that possesses the broadest set of authorities. With respect to planning approvals, the City Council considers recommendations and makes decisions on zone changes and general plan amendments. They also consider the appeal of decisions that have been issued by the Area Planning Commission or the City Planning Commission, and will also consider the standalone appeal of CEQA clearances for projects. Common entitlement suffixes. This slide gives a few examples on commonly requested suffixes affiliated with discretionary planning applications. A couple highlights here is a conditional use, which is a request to allow a use on a site that is not permitted by right, but can be approved at the city's discretion if it is determined to be appropriate. Site plan review is an entitlement that is filed for residential buildings that will generally construct 50 or more new units, or 50,000 more new square feet of non-residential space, such as new commercial or industrial buildings. While the underlying zoning may allow for the construction of these types of projects, site plan review is a planning tool we use to review various projects of a project's design, conduct an environmental analysis, and ensure that the development is proper in relation to its surrounding and that is within substantial conformance with the general plan. As we went over in the last slide, the zoning code determines which decision maker is responsible for considering each type of entitlement request. The zoning code also outlines the rules that must be followed to process and consider each request. This can involve whether or not a project must hold a public hearing, how the public is notified if a public hearing is required, and who can appeal the decision of a decision maker. For an example, while requests for a conditional use or a zone change will always require a public hearing, requests for a site plan review or transit-oriented community projects do not require a public hearing. Some variations may occur when a project is requesting multiple entitlements, and there are rules in place that determine which process to follow for these types of situations. At the end of the day, the Los Angeles Municipal Code is the authority that determines how cases are routed and what processes to follow. We have a handout for everyone joining today's training that spells out what these entitlements are. For more information, please consult that handout, and always know that you can reach out to the city planning staff at the DSC for additional information. We're here to help and clarify the process for you. Geo teams. Earlier we mentioned the 3 geo teams across the city that process project applications. Once a case file has been assigned, it is typically referred to one of these teams, where a formal project review process begins. At this stage, a planner from the area is assigned to the case, someone who is familiar with the local zoning and issues in the community. For an example, project planners assigned to the Central and East geographic areas are well versed in hillside regulations and topics related to the sign district, given their presence in parts of downtown and Hollywood. On the other hand, the West, South, and harbor planners tend to be more conversant with coastal land use regulations and the intersection of land use and health, given the long-standing environmental justice issues in regions of the city such as Harbor and South Los Angeles. Contrast these 2 teams with the Valley, an area of the city known for equine keeping and large expanses of agriculture area. Each geographic region varies, and within each, there are a lot of nuance and diversity. That's why each planner on the geo teams is trained to handle a range of projects, acting as a decision maker on some types of these cases, and drafting recommendation reports on others for higher level decision makers to review. Expedite processing section. The last slide mentioned that case files are typically routed to geo teams for processing. We say typically because there are exceptions. City planning has an expedited processing section, also known as EPS, that provides applicants with a streamlined path for processing planning entitlements. These projects often benefit from a 30 to 50% reduction in processing time, meaning the time it takes to advance a project to the first level of hearing. The caveat is that only certain types of projects can be qualified to be reviewed by EPS. Applicants must submit a pre-intake form and meet with EPS staff to confirm eligibility. Over the years, EPS has helped advance affordable housing projects, multifamily such as apartments, condominiums, and small lot homes, and non-residential such as hotels, office, schools, commercial, and industrial projects through the land use process, contributing to the economic well-being of the city in the form of new jobs, revenue, and housing units. Project review. No matter which division or section is reviewing your project, each project application goes through several steps of review. Planners conduct a detailed analysis by reviewing the project description to make sure that all of the appropriate entitlements have been filed for. This involves reviewing the use, height, density, FAR, setbacks, parking, and design of a project to verify which approvals are required. When the requested entitlement allows, the assigned planner will review the project's design to check for compliance with any applicable design guidelines or standards. Whatever entitlements are requested, however, all discretionary projects undergo environmental review to assess their potential impacts on the environment. Staff will also review and verify the background information the applicant has submitted. This includes reviewing the findings that the applicant submitted to support their requests. Throughout these multiple levels of review, the planner and decision maker will analyze the project's background and information provided. They determine whether findings can be made to support a recommendation or decision maker's final determination, which includes determining whether the project should be modified, altered, or conditioned in any way. Citywide projects. While the EPS section can be thought of as a service offered by the department, the Citywide Projects section, commonly called Major Projects, is responsible for reviewing a particular subset of projects. Cases that require the preparation of an Environmental Impact Report, or an EIR, are routed to the Major Projects section. Having a dedicated team of planners in the department assigned to handling EIRs has contributed greatly to the quality and consistency of documents produced. Since the establishment in 2010, Major Projects has moved a number of catalytic projects through the legislative approval process. These are often large-scale development proposals that produce good-paying jobs, housing, and neighborhood-serving amenities. Design review. City planning generally conducts a design review of a project when it is applied for a site plan review, although design review is not only limited to these types of projects. Planners do their best to ensure projects are shaped by their neighborhood context and that applicants exercise best practices in urban design. Los Angeles recently updated its citywide design guidelines for the benefit of developers, applicants, and our citywide decision makers. This effort was spearheaded by our urban design studio, which works to elevate the quality of building design to create a more vibrant, livable, walkable, and sustainable city. Among its guiding values are creating a public realm that matches some of Los Angeles' iconic and recognizable private spaces, elevating design expectations for private development, and promoting Los Angeles as a center of design, innovation, and experimentation. Studio staff provide planners and applicants with project-specific recommendations. These recommendations are organized around three distinct yet interrelated approaches to design. First, they look at the pedestrian experience on how buildings can open up to the street front. Second, they take into consideration the impacts of the built environment on the surrounding area, which is a 360 approach to planning. Lastly, they draw upon some of the latest advancements in climate-adapted designs, recognizing the role a building's form can play in local climate. The studio also oversees the Professional Volunteer Program, also known as the PVP, a review forum comprised of a rotating pool of volunteer architects and designers from the local chapters of the American Institute of Architects, also known as the AIA, who provide design feedback to assess planners in shaping the design of proposed projects to be presented to the City Planning Commission. Environmental review. One law that directly shapes and informs land use considerations across the state is the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA. Under CEQA, local agencies are required to review, disclose, avoid, and/or mitigate environmental impacts associated with the review of all discretionary projects. Before a project can advance to a public hearing or a final decision can be made on the request, a planner must conduct an environmental analysis on the project. Planners will first determine if a project qualifies for a categorical or statutory exemption. This may include the preparation of supplemental studies to support the project's qualification for an exemption. If a project qualifies for an exemption, no further environmental analysis is required. If a project does not qualify for an exemption, an initial study will be prepared to determine if a project may result in a potential significant impact on the environment. This preparation of an initial study is often supported by studies analyzing the project's potential impacts. If an initial study determines that the project will not result in any potential significant impacts on the environment, a negative declaration is prepared. If it is determined that the project will result in a potential significant impact on the environment, but mitigation measures would reduce impacts to a less than significant level, a mitigated negative declaration is prepared. Finally, if it is determined that the project will result in a potential significant impact on the environment and mitigation measures will not reduce such impacts to less than significant levels, the city will then need to prepare an environmental impact report, also known as an EIR. For a closer look at the CEQA review process, please visit our department's YouTube page at Planning for LA and watch the training Planning 101, Planning for the Environment. Please note the link on this slide links to the published environmental documents that are also publicly accessible on our department's website.
Public input is an important component of the discretionary project planning process. Traditionally, a project's public hearing is an opportunity for residents to ask questions and submit comments to city staff or to the project's decision maker. Our department staffs over 100 hearings each month. Each of those represent an opportunity for the public to get involved in the planning process. And while public hearings are a traditional way to provide input, they are not the only way that the department welcomes feedback from the community. You can share input by calling the assigned planner, sending them an email, or mailing a written response to the department. These other forms of input are very important, especially in instances where our zoning code specifies that a particular type of entitlement does not require that a public hearing be held. Additionally, the city's certified neighborhood councils provide a venue for shaping project recommendations. The boards of each neighborhood council meet regularly to review discretionary projects and to meet with applicants. Sometimes they prepare recommendation letters or community impact statements expressing support for or opposition to a project. The staff members assigned to processing the case take these letters and statements into consideration as they do all public comments. While there are often limits to what a decision maker may require from an applicant, the decision maker considers all public comments, including letters from neighborhood councils, along with an applicant's submittal package before issuing a final determination letter. Los Angeles' 99 neighborhood councils also offer opportunities for Angelenos to make their voices heard about projects that would impact them. The neighborhood council system was established in 1999 to ensure that government remains responsive to the varying needs and lifestyles of Los Angeles' diverse mix of people and communities. Each of the city's 99 neighborhood councils represents about 40,000 people. Over the years, these advisory bodies have helped advocate for their communities on important issues. Whenever a case is filed with city planning, the department sends a copy of the application materials to the local neighborhood council to keep community members informed about issues related to land use and development. Often, the local neighborhood council will allow the applicant of the proposed project to present their proposal to the neighborhood council's Planning and Land Use Committee. This allows the applicant to introduce the project, answer questions, and potentially address issues raised by the community. A popular tool on our new website allows users to search our events calendar specifically for public hearings. Toggle the color-coded buttons above the calendar to display or hide any event type, including hearings. You can also view scheduled public hearings as a running list by choosing Commissions, Boards, and Hearings under the About section in the menu at the top of the page. This page links to the public hearing notice for each case. Each public hearing notice contains the date and time of the hearing and instructions for providing comments during the hearing. The notice also includes pertinent information on the proposed case, including the project description, the project's address, the requested actions, as well as relevant staff contact information. Also on this page, choose any commission from the Commission Agenda Sign Up drop-down menu to sign up for notifications of public hearings. To stay informed on a particular case, sign up for the given project's interested parties list. These lists keep subscribers informed of any notices released or determination letters issued for a given project. During COVID-19, city planning has implemented new procedures consistent with instructions from the state to allow for public hearings and outreach meetings while still maintaining proper physical distancing protocols. All public hearings are now being held telephonically in order to provide continued service to communities and businesses across Los Angeles and to facilitate the city's short and long-term housing and economic growth. The department uses Zoom to facilitate public hearings, which has in many instances expanded the number of participants that join the public hearings utilizing either their phone, smart device, or laptop. Although the public hearings for various entitlements may be conducted differently, in general, the order of a hearing will include a presentation of the proposed project, followed by an opportunity for the applicant to present the project, and then followed by an opportunity for members of the public, including any individual, neighborhood council representative, or council office, to speak on the projects. After members of the public have been given a chance to speak, a decision maker or hearing officer may then ask questions of the applicant. If the hearing is held by a decision maker, a decision on the case may be announced during the hearing, or the project may be held under advisement, to allow more time for the public to submit comments before a decision is issued. If the hearing is held by a hearing officer on behalf of a decision maker, like the City Planning Commission, a decision will not be announced at the hearing. Rather, staff will use the public hearing to inform a staff recommendation report that will be presented to the project's assigned decision maker. For information on how to participate in a public hearing, please consult the public hearing notices you receive. Detailed instructions are included on each hearing notice, and as always, you can consult the department's website for additional information. Generally speaking, staff recommendation reports are prepared for projects that will be presented to a decision maker for their consideration and determination. These recommendation reports are typically prepared for projects such as tentative tract maps, preliminary parcel maps, or any cases that will be presented to the City Planning Commission or Area Planning Commission. On a public hearing notice, projects that will include the preparation of a staff recommendation report are those with a case number prefix of VTT, AA, CPC, or APC. For cases with a CPC or APC suffix, staff may hold a hearing on behalf of a decision maker and subsequently prepare a recommendation letter to the project's decision maker. The recommendation report will recommend either approval of the project with conditions or that the project be denied. Recommendation reports are not, however, prepared for quasi-judicial projects that will be decided by a zoning administrator. For cases with a ZA prefix, the zoning administrator will receive and review background information and hold a public hearing before issuing a determination letter. Projects that have a DIR or CHC prefix do not require staff recommendation reports either. Examples of these case types are director-level density bonuses, site plan review cases, TOC requests, and proposed historic cultural monuments. Once city planning staff has completed review of a project and the decision maker has considered all of the facts related to the case, a letter of determination will be issued. A project may be approved with conditions or it may be denied. The determination letter will be emailed and mailed out to the project applicant and all code-required notification lists, as well as the project's interested parties list. When a discretionary project has been approved, it usually comes with conditions that a project must comply with in order to proceed. Any conditions applied to a project must be based on land use, have a nexus with the project's request, and be supported by code-required findings, which we'll go over in our next slide. Often, conditions imposed on a project place certain requirements or restrictions on the development, and can even require that the project be modified. In general, conditions are intended to ensure that the project contributes to neighborhood cohesion and promotes the overall quality of life of those in the surrounding area. The types of conditions imposed on a project are determined by its entitlement request and location, as well as the zoning rules in place at the time the project is filed. If the entitlement allows, conditions can be related to design requirements. For example, in a hypothetical site plan review approval, a condition might specify the location of a project's entrances or require that its parking levels be screened with vegetation. It's important to note that there are limits to what a decision maker may condition. For example, in a request for a conditional use permit to sell alcohol at an existing restaurant, the decision maker may impose a condition to prohibit the private use of the restaurant for after-hours parties. However, the decision maker would not have the authority to condition the design of the restaurant. This is because the decision maker is only considering the proposed use to sell alcohol. As another example, a decision maker may be reviewing a housing development that has requested a density bonus or has been filed as a TOC project. With these types of requests, an applicant must set aside a minimum number of units as affordable in order to qualify for an increase in density. There are existing regulations and guidelines that tell us the minimum percentage of units that need to be affordable. While we would like to, these regulations do not allow us to condition a project to set aside more than these regulations require. Decision makers are also limited when it comes to requiring conditions that an applicant has volunteered in order to garner community support. For example, if an applicant for a project has agreed to pay for the installment of new street signage near their proposed project, a decision maker cannot require this as a condition unless they have determined that the project would destroy such signage or create a direct need for it. Every determination letter must include findings that are prepared by city planning and are used as the ultimate justification for a project's determination. These findings provide a legal basis to act on a project while ensuring consistency with how projects are reviewed. They explain how a project was determined to be consistent with city planning's regulatory framework, such as its general plan and zoning regulations. They can also explain how a project met certain requirements or had a unique hardship that required them to file the application. Making the necessary findings on a project ensures consistency in how city planning reviews projects and provides a record of the decision. They also allow the public to more easily understand why a particular decision was made. Each determination letter specifies a window of time during which eligible individuals may file an appeal against the case. Individuals file appeals in order to contest the outcome or determination of a case because they believe the decision maker erred or abused discretion when issuing the decision. City planning allows discretionary cases to be appealed at least one time. Each determination letter includes instructions on how to file an appeal. While certified neighborhood councils may oppose a project, they cannot formally appeal a project because they are official entities of the City of Los Angeles. When filing appeal applications with the city, appellants include the reason for the appeal, describe how they are aggrieved by the decision, and state why they believe the decision maker erred or abused their discretion. All appeals of city planning determinations are initially considered by either an area planning commission or the city planning commission. When the zoning code allows for a project's determination to be appealed a second time, the city council will consider the merit of the second level appeal. The city council will also consider the merit of standalone CEQA appeals that may be filed with the city council. That's in the event the project's discretionary entitlement can only be appealed once to the area or city planning commission. As described previously, once a project is approved and all determinations are final, including the outcome of any appeals, an applicant may return to the DSC to demonstrate compliance with any required conditions and then request a building permit from Building and Safety. If a project is denied, the proposed project would not be eligible to request a building permit. And that brings you to the end of the entitlement review process. Before we end our presentation and open it up to questions, we want to direct you to some of our helpful online resources, which are intended to help all community members stay involved in the planning process and to learn even more about the zoning that applies to their own property. Case information is easily accessible by visiting our website's homepage or by navigating to the Case Reports page under Resources. And among other search options, you can enter a case file number to generate the relevant project information. All case information is also available by using PDIS at planning.lacity.org/PDIS caseinfo. And you can use PDIS to search for any applicable project planning case or ordinance. To keep the public informed about the discretionary projects filed with the department, as well as those that have been issued a determination, the department sends out a bi-weekly report listing new case filings and a weekly report listing recently completed cases. You can receive these reports by subscribing to the email list through the link on the Case Reports page of the website under Resources. The reports are also posted on the Case Reports page. The city's case reports include hyperlink case numbers that connect to a project's case summary and available documentation. These reports are regularly sent to all board members of certified neighborhood councils. However, anyone may sign up to receive these reports. Taking these reports one step further, city planning has developed interactive maps that pinpoint the location of proposed and approved projects throughout the city. These GIS mapping applications enable users to locate these projects, filter them by community plan area, council district, and certified neighborhood council, allowing people to visualize development trends and patterns. At City Planning, we're also proud of our Zone Information and Map Access System, commonly referred to as ZIMAS, which is a web-based mapping tool that provides zoning information for properties located in Los Angeles. ZIMAS was developed by City Planning to assist residents and businesses in making better informed land use decisions. Users can look up information for any property in the city. ZIMAS displays everything from a parcel's land use and zoning designations to its planning application and building permit history. ZIMAS also allows users to link directly to PDIS to obtain determination letters, as well as a link to the Los Angeles Municipal Code. This site is often the first place applicants go, even before they consult with staff at the DSC to get the lay of the land and to find out what can be built on a property. Finally, there's our department's website, planningforla.org. That's planning, the number 4, la.org. There you'll find information about zoning and development services, as well as our events calendar, city planning news items, and much more. Thank you for attending our second installment of our Planning 101 Project Planning Training Series. For further inquiries, please reach out to the community liaison for your area. Their contact information is shown here. Additionally, you can connect with us via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, or YouTube at Planning for LA. And now let's open it up to questions. As a reminder, we are going to do our best to get through as many questions as possible. But if we're unable to get to your question today, please email us at planning.liaison@lacity.org, and we'll be sure to follow up. We're also available to schedule time to discuss any additional comments or questions you may have. And for those of you interested in viewing this material again, the presentation will be posted on our department's YouTube channel. Thank you. Reports are also posted on the Case Reports page. The city's case reports include hyperlinked case numbers that connect to a project's case summary and available documentation. These reports are regularly sent to all board members of certified neighborhood councils. However, anyone may sign up to receive these reports. Taking these reports one step further, City Planning has developed interactive maps that pinpoint the location of proposed and approved projects throughout the city. These GIS mapping applications enable users to locate these projects, filter them by community plan area, council district, and certified neighborhood council, allowing people to visualize development trends and patterns. At City Planning, we're also proud of our Zone Information and Map Access System, commonly referred to as ZIMAS, which is a web-based mapping tool that provides zoning information for properties located in Los Angeles. ZIMAS was developed by City Planning to assist residents and businesses in making better informed land use decisions. Users can look up information for any property in the city. ZIMAS displays everything from a parcel's land use and zoning designations to its planning application and building permit history. ZIMAS also allows users to link directly to PDIS to obtain determination letters, as well as a link to the Los Angeles Municipal Code. This site is often the first place applicants go, even before they consult with staff at the DSC to get the lay of the land and to find out what can be built on a property. Finally, there's our department's website, planningforla.org. That's planning, the number 4, la.org. There you'll find information about zoning and development services, as well as our events calendar, city planning news items, and much more. Thank you for attending our second installment of our Planning 101 Project Planning Training Series. For further inquiries, please reach out to the community liaison for your area. Their contact information is shown here. Additionally, you can connect with us via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, or YouTube at Planning for LA. And now let's open it up to questions. As a reminder, we are going to do our best to get through as many questions as possible, but if we're unable to get to your question today, please email us at planning.liaison@lacity.org, and we'll be sure to follow up. We're also available to schedule time to discuss any additional comments or questions you may have. And for those of you interested in viewing this material again, the presentation will be posted on our department's YouTube channel. Thank you.